Morning everyone, it's Clive. It's another brew day. You can see I've already got the boiler on. I'm slightly later today. I normally get up at 6:30, but for some reason I had a bit of a lie-in, so I didn't start the boiler until half 8 this morning. Today I'm going to have another go at Harvest Pale. Now, many of you remember I had to go at Harvest Pale before, but I made it slightly too hoppy. So I've cut the hops down. I'm going to have another go and let the fun commence. Cheers. Okay everyone, I'm just waiting for the water to cool down in my boiler, so I'll just tell you what ingredients are going into a Harvest Pale today. Now here we go. I've just added 5 kilograms of lager malt to the mash tun. In addition, I've got 132 grams of Torrefied wheat. That's this one. And I'm going to add another 132 grams of pale malt. That'll all go in here, and what I normally do, I give it a good old stir around to make sure it's all uniformly distributed before I add the water. Here we go. I've added all the malt into the mash tun now. What I like to do is give it a really good mix. I get right to the bottom of the mash tun. Now, I've noticed with malt, you get a difference in the sort of material that you get with the malt. You've got the grain itself, but then you usually get the sugar. The sugar is often the very fine stuff, I think. So I think that's the really very fine powdery stuff is probably more rich in sugar. So if you've ever noticed a difference in your beers, it's possibly because the malt that you've added has either been richer in the actual grain or richer in the sugar. So if it's richer in sugar, you're going to get more alcohol. Just a small thing I noticed. Here we go. The water in my boiler is cooled to less than 80 degrees C now. What I do is I add about 9 litres of water to the mash tun. So you can see I've got a 2 litre measuring container here, and I'll add 4.5 amounts of this to the mash tun so it can steep in the water. So here we go. I'm going to add the water very carefully. So what I try and do is pour it around the edges so it doesn't sort of go straight through the grain. Here we go. When you add the water, you'll notice it will start bubbling. This isn't anything to worry about. All this is the water percolating into the grain and forcing the air out. So it's just the air coming out, really. So it's not anything. It's not reacting or anything. Here we go. All the water's added to the mash tun. Now what I do now is I give it a really good stir. Okay, now you want to make sure that all of the water is in contact with the grain. You don't want any air left in your malt. If there's air left in there in contact with the grain, obviously the water isn't going to have any contact with it. And if the water is not contacting the grain, it's not dissolving the sugar. So you want to get rid of all the air as much as possible. Okay. So all I'm doing is just trying to reach right down to the bottom of the grain, and try and do this as quickly as possible, because you don't want your water to cool down, because that's the other thing. You want reasonably warm water in there. It's got to be optimum of 67 degrees. That's the optimum temperature at which the sugar is dissolved from the malt. Okay everyone, here we go. I've got the mash tun all charged with my malt and the water, and you can see I've wrapped it up. It's a chilly day. It's early December here in Nottingham, and like I said in my last video, I discovered that it's probably a good idea to wrap up your mash tun. In fact, if I put my hand on here, no, I can't feel any warmth. Whereas if you leave it unwrapped, you can feel warmth. I mean, these are insulated, but they're obviously not 100% effective, so it's a good idea to wrap it up to try and insulate it a little bit more. Other thing I'd suggest is, as soon as you've got your mash tun charged and sitting, it's going to sit now for an hour and a half, is get your water boiler on immediately. You've got to top it right up with water and get it boiling again, because you need to get this water back up to 100 degrees and then cool down to 80 again for you to sparge your mash, so to wash out all the sugars from the malt. So good tip there, get your boiler on immediately. So that's now time, I think, for a cup of tea. See you guys in a bit. Okay, my boiled water has cooled down to less than 80 degrees C, and I'm just about to unwrap the mash tun and then sparge the water from the boiler through the malt and into the primary fermentation bin, which will then get transferred back into the boiler again to boil up with the hops later. So here we go. Here we go, let's just take the lid off the mash tun and have a look and see. Okay. Oh, this is where you get the first rush of malty sweet odour from the malt. Fantastic. Look at it. This is the first sort of litre or so that I've just drawn straight off of the mash tun. You can see how cloudy that is. This will go straight back in to the top of the malt here. As I've said before, the malt itself acts like a bit of a filter bed. Very carefully pour this into the malt, and we'll draw off a bit more. Here we go. I'm now very carefully sparging the boiled water through the top of the malt, and which is then draining through the malt and extracting the sugars, and it's being caught in the bin here. So we shall keep doing this until the water from here is all gone. Okay, the wort is now in the boiler, so that's boiling away. When you finish the sparging, the wort's normally in the sort of mid-50s, so we've got to get it back up to boiling again. And the mash tun is out here, and I'm just draining off the last little bit. And what I normally do, I've got a couple of 2 litre pop bottles that I fill up, and this is, you can see this is plenty of sugar in this, so I normally top up the boiler, because you lose quite a lot of wort through evaporation, so I'll add that later. Here we go. This is the little bit of extra wort that I've taken off the mash tun. It's nice and warm. It's a chilly day, so it's like a bit of a beery hot water bottle, so that's quite nice. Keep my nose warm at least. Okay, cheers guys. Okay, the wort is at 100 degrees C and it's nicely bubbling away, and I've just added the first batch of hops. And the hops I'm adding today, I'm adding Cascade, Pilot and Galena. I'm going to add them in a bit of a sort of hop schedule. Now, the first addition of hops was 12 grams of Cascade, then 6 grams of Galena and 6 grams of Pilot. And then I'm going to add more at 10 minutes, 20 minutes and at the end, and I'll sort of go through. 10 minutes I'll add another 8 grams of Pilot, 20 grams of Cascade, 20 minutes into the boil another 6 grams of Pilot, 12 grams of Cascade, and right at the end I'll add a further 5 grams of Galena. This is starting to get a little bit vigorous now, so let me give it a stir just to calm it down a little bit. There we go, I've given it a stir, that sort of calmed it down a little bit. I don't know why stirring it helps to sort of calm it down, but it certainly does. So we've got a little while to go yet, hour and a half of boiling. So this is my favourite stage of the beer brewing process, the hot boil. Here we go, this is the 10-minute boil hop waiting to go in. I'm adding Cascade and Pilot. These flip top things are pretty handy. I got these from a well-known Swedish furniture store chain, out of town retail place. Right, that's the end of the hot boil. Time to turn on the cooler, so let's just plug it in. Go, no kinks on the thing. Hopefully that should. Oh, put that back in there. There we go. Now that should now cool down the wort. Just like that. There we go. There you go. The chiller has taken that down from 100 to less than 30 in 10 minutes. That's pretty cool. Quite literally. Just transferring to the primary fermentation bin. I've got a little thermometer thing on the side of my primary fermentation bin here, which is pretty handy. And this is showing, you probably can't quite see actually, it's showing that it's in between 26 and 28 degrees, so that's just confirming that the wort is actually in the right temperature range for adding the yeast. Well folks, that's me clearing up. The beer's put to bed. It's in the primary fermentation with the bubbler in the hallway in the house. And let me just say, what a good day it's been. Okay folks, that's been a good day. The beer's in the primary fermentation bin with the bubbler. It's in the house in the hallway by the front door where I normally keep it, and I'll keep you posted as to how it's gone. Okay, cheers. A good day.